Thanks for tuning in to the Prime Bookseller Podcast, the bi-weekly podcast discussing all things Amazon bookselling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Prime Bookselling Podcast. I'm Eric. We're back again with another episode. Got a simple topic for today's episode. We're talking about action-required emails, and you might be thinking, if you're not familiar with the world of selling on Amazon, what is an action-required email? And you will, once you have your Amazon seller account up and running, you will become very familiar with these emails because Amazon sends them all the time. And the reason for why they're important is because a large portion of the action-required emails you will find are... it used to be that if you got an action required email, it's like, oh God, you got to read this because it could be putting your account in jeopardy. It is not. They've diluted it now down to the point where it's not that way anymore. So those action required emails still come that could be saying, hey, your account is in jeopardy. But then there's also a number of other ones that they're just saying, letting you know something's going on, and the email says action required, but it's really not a dire straight anything. So this is like your number one simplest way to be monitoring your account and know if Amazon is not liking something that you're doing. So it is very important. As much as you might think that these emails do not matter, you do need to look through them, read them carefully, and try to understand what they mean and what they are talking about. Some of them will just be about they have issues with your pricing, which is typically, at the time of this recording, that's not that big of a deal. If you fix it, it's probably going to make your store better. You'll get more sales. But at the same time, if you don't fix it, it's just going to sit there until you go in and fix it. But then there are other emails that will be telling you that, hey, you did something wrong. We're tracking this. And if it continues to happen, your account will be suspended. So being that you're a new seller and you might not understand exactly what they're talking about with these emails, how do you differentiate which ones are the really important ones and which ones are more of the informational, hey, this will make you a better seller, action required email? And the easiest way to do that is if you read through the email. If it's a big deal, they'll typically tell you somewhere in the email that if this is not resolved or this issue continues to happen, you could see your account suspended. And those are the ones that you want to read or that you want to know about and you want to take action on, or at least understand what's happening to know how to protect your account. Because again, I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, but there are simply some issues that you cannot resolve. I mean, if a customer says that they bought something used from you that you listed it as new and they said it was new, that's a really hard thing to defend. You can send an invoice in. More than likely, Amazon's not going to accept the invoice. And so it's a very, very hard. Some of these things are very hard, but it's important for you to understand that the importance of these emails and to know when you get one of these emails, how is that email going to affect your account? And I think probably on the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to do a deep dive into the performance tab on Amazon Seller Central, just to give everybody an idea of what those different metrics that are in there mean. And that's how you can really monitor whether, once you get one of these emails, you can go monitor and see how it affects your account. And so, but the most important thing for this episode is that if you see an email come through from Amazon, and understand that in time, once you get more experienced as a seller, you'll be able to look at the emails and very quickly tell if this is one that you need to be worried about or if this is just one that is informational. But when you're first starting out, whenever you get one of those emails, you need to read it and make sure that you understand why it's happening. If you have no clue why you got this email, then you need to reach out to somebody that can assist you with it to figure out why it's coming and how big of a crisis it is, if it is a crisis at all. always keep in mind, if you sign up for an Amazon account, the first email you get from Amazon is an action required email. It does not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It's just you need to look at that email to make sure it's not a bad thing. So some of the big things that you'll see in these emails will be counterfeiting items, selling used items as new, suspected counterfeiting, and with the counterfeit items and the suspected counterfeit items, these are also very fun ones because the suspected one, it'll show up in your metrics, but it really doesn't affect you in any way until it becomes a counterfeit one. And so there's a lot of this where, we suspect this might be this, but we don't know. And that's really just like an informational email. But then if they send you another email that says, this is counterfeit, then that is a big deal. And so what do you do in these situations? Well, hopefully in the performance tab episode, we'll go deeper dive into these, but some of these you may find just with your business model that you can't fix them. So it's more about monitoring to make sure that you don't get too many of them. Amazon does have a little green bar that basically says if your seller account's in a good range or a bad range, and just monitoring those to make sure that green bar stays in green. Because once you get down to a yellow or a red, that's not in a good place. So I don't actually think I have very much more for this episode. I just really wanted to put this out there because I do think that it's important for people to realize that these action required emails are very important. You need to be monitoring them. And I don't think any other resource on the internet you could ever find that talks about book selling on Amazon or selling on Amazon in general will really address this issue. And yeah, it's probably because it's such a minor issue. And like you can see, we're at a 7-minute episode right now covering this issue because there isn't much to cover, but it is an important aspect for you to know in your business to be able to monitor and keep the evil beings at Amazon happy with you. So if there are any questions about this episode, feel free to reach out to me. The email is sales@kingsridgemedia.com. As well, I would encourage everybody to check out our different sourcing programs that we have through Kingsridge Media. You can find a link for those down in the show notes of this episode, as well as if you just want to jump over to kingsridgemedia.com, you can also view them there. And I will be back next week. I will make sure that we do the performance tab next week, which we'll be breaking out and looking at the different aspects. If you do have an Amazon account, you can go look at it today. You do have a performance tab in there. We'll be talking about what the different categories are and what ones are really important to pay attention to and which ones are not important. The biggest thing, they've actually made that performance tab a lot better in probably the last 2 years. So the biggest thing is that there is a little progress bar, I guess I would call it, or status bar that they have in there. And that's the number one thing to pay attention to. But it's also good to understand where that bar's number is coming from, which is what we'll cover in the next episode. So with that, I'll wrap this episode up. We will see you all in 2 weeks, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to the Prime Bookseller Podcast. Join us for the next episode as we discuss all things Amazon bookselling.